Hey there, my name is Kelly Dale and I'm owner of Off the Beaded Path. For today's bonus video, I'm going to show you how to make a little tiny pocketbook charm, and it looks just like this. Very, very tiny. Some people call it a Barbie bag, a Barbie handbag. There's all sorts of little names for it, but it's just a little tiny purse charm. Now you can, give these to kids. You can hang these on your purse. You can give them to kids to play with their Barbies. I mean, you can make them a little charm on a necklace, bracelet, kind of whatever you want to. But basically what you're going to need to do the project with today is you're going to need 4 and 3 millimeter rounds or bicones. If you use 4 millimeter, or when you use the 4 millimeters, you're going to need about 26, and your 3 millimeters, you're going to need about 24, and you're also going to need a size 11 seed bead. Now, for the handbag charm, I'm going to be using illusion cord, which is just a clear monofilament cord, so that it'll hold its shape better. You can use the fire line, but if you use the fire line, you may have it may be more crunchy and not as firm as this little pocketbook charm is. So go ahead and get your materials together and we'll get started. So the first thing I've done is cut my illusion cord, and it's about between 28 and 30 inches. And I'm going to be using nothing but my 4 millimeters until I tell you to switch to 3 millimeters. You can use a big eye needle for this also if you want to, but you may have a little bit of trouble getting it through. But the first thing you want to do is you want to thread on 4 4-millimeter bicones. So I'm going to thread on 3. And then I'm going to pick up 1. And I'm going to cross my threads opposite ways through it. And the only thing I hate about using pearls is that sometimes the holes aren't very big in them, so you just kind of have to, I may suggest using a bead reamer to clean out some of the holes before you actually start. So I'm going to put my 2 threads together, I'm going to hold them to that pearl, and I'm going to pull so that it makes a little circle of 4. Now I'm going to do this 3 more times. I want 3 more circles for a total of 4 circles. So I'm going to pick up 1 4 millimeter onto each thread. And then I'm going to pick up 1 4 millimeter, and I'm going to cross my threads opposite ways through that 1 bead and pull. Now I've got 2 boxes, 1 on each thread. Pick up 1 and cross opposite ways through it. And now 1 more, 1 on each thread. And then I'm going to pick up 1 and cross opposite ways through it. So that now, when you lay them out flat, you have 4 circles. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now for the 5th circle, we're going to do it a little different. I'm going to take 1 thread, and I'm going to pick up 2 4 millimeters. With my other thread, I'm going to pick up 1 4 millimeter, and I'm going to cross my needles opposite ways through that 1 bead, so that when I pull, instead of coming out on the top like I have been, I'm going to be coming out of the side box. So I have 5 boxes here, and my thread is coming out of the side. Now with the thread that's exiting towards all of the beadwork, I'm going to go through the very next 4 millimeter round in this outer row. So I'm just going to take and just stick it right through the very next round. And pull, so that when you pull, it pulls those two beads together. The thread coming out of the top, this one here, picks up one bead and let it fall. And with the other thread, the one we just used to come through through the next 4mm, I'm going to pick up one 4mm and I'm going to cross opposite ways through it. And pull. So that when you do that, it kind of cups its little self up together. Now the thread that's coming out towards the beadwork is going to go right through the very next bead here on the base. I'm going to come through the next one. So that when you pull, it'll pull them together. The top thread here picks up one 4mm. Let it fall. The one we just used picks up a 4mm and cross opposite ways through that 4mm. And pull. And as you work, you're going to see that it's starting to dome up a little bit, and that's exactly what you want it to do. So the thread exiting towards the beadwork here goes through the next purl. The thread here on this side picks up one purl, or I should say one 4mm. The one coming out of the 4mm on the base picks up a 4mm and cross opposite ways through it. And one more time, the thread exiting towards my beadwork here comes down through this last side 4mm. This outside thread picks up one 4mm. The one I just used picks up a 4mm. And we're going to cross opposite ways through it. So that when you pull, this is what you should have so far. The needle exiting here to the bottom towards my beadwork is going to go through the very next 4mm here on the end. So you have one coming out of each side. I'm going to take this one here on the outside and I'm going to pick up a 4mm round. And I'm going to take the one I just used, so the one I just used to go through with a minute ago, and I'm going to pick up a purl and I'm going to cross opposite ways through that purl. So that when I pull, now I have a complete little, what I call a boat, and I'll hold it to this side so you can see. So it looks like a little boat. It's exactly what you've got, and it's curved. So you're exactly where you need to be to start the next step. Now we're going to be using 3mm for this step here. Excuse me. So from where we're coming out, you want to pick up, we're going to be switching to 3 millimeters now. We're not going to be using any more 4s at this point. So the needle exiting towards the top is going to pick up 2 3 millimeters. Whoops. My other needle exiting towards the bottom is going to pick up 1 3 millimeter, and you're going to cross opposite ways through that one bead so that it looks just like this. The needle exiting towards the bottom is going to go through the very next 4 millimeter purl here along this top edge. The needle that's exiting my 3 millimeter picks up a 3 millimeter. The needle exiting the 4 millimeter picks up a 4 millimeter, and you're going to cross your threads opposite ways through the one that's exiting the 4 millimeter. The needle exiting towards the bottom goes through the next 4 millimeter along the edge. The thread exiting the 3 millimeter picks up a 3 millimeter. The thread exiting the 4 millimeter picks up a 3 millimeter, and cross your needles opposite ways through the one bead. Needle exiting towards the bottom goes to the next 4 millimeter along the outer edge here. The needle that's exiting the 3 millimeter picks up a 3 millimeter. The needle exiting the 4 millimeter picks up a 3 millimeter, and we're going to cross our needles opposite ways through that one bead. The needle exiting towards the bottom goes to the next 4 millimeter here along the edge. The needle exiting the 3 millimeter picks up a 3 millimeter. The needle exiting the 4 millimeter is going to pick up a 4 millimeter or a 3 millimeter, and you're going to cross your needles opposite ways through that one bead. Now when you get to the top here or to this other side, there's not going to be any change in what you're doing. You're going to take your thread and go the one that's exiting towards the bottom, and you're going to go through the next 4 millimeter here along the outer side. It will just be at one of our little boat ends is what I'm going to call it. Needle exiting the 3 millimeter picks up a 3 millimeter. The needle exiting the 4 millimeter picks up a 3 and cross opposite ways through that one bead. The needle exiting the bottom goes through the next 4 millimeter. The needle exiting the 3 millimeter picks up a 3. The needle exiting the 4 millimeter picks up a 3, and you're going to cross your threads opposite ways through that one bead. Needle exiting the bottom goes through the next 4 millimeter. The needle exiting the 3 millimeter picks up a 3 millimeter. The needle exiting the 4 millimeter picks up a 3 millimeter, and you're going to cross your threads opposite ways through that bead. Needle exiting the bottom goes to the next 4 millimeter. The needle that's exiting the 3mm picks up a 3mm. The one exiting the 4mm picks up a 3mm, and you're going to cross your needles opposite ways through that one bead. The needle exiting the bottom goes through the next 4mm. The needle exiting the 3mm is going to pick up a 3mm. The needle exiting the 4mm picks up a 3mm, and you're going to cross your needles opposite ways. The needle exiting towards the bottom goes through the next 4mm. The needle that's exiting the 3mm picks up a 3. The needle exiting the 4mm picks up a 3mm, and cross your needles opposite ways. And then finally, on this last one, you've got one 4mm left here. You're going to go through the 4mm and then take that same thread and go up through the very first 3mm here right above it. The hole in this little 3mm is being ornery. Like I said, you can use big eye needles on this if you want to, but I just find it just as easy to work without them. So finally, for this last step here, you're going to pick up one 3mm, doesn't matter which needle, and you're going to cross your threads opposite ways through the 3mm. So that now you have the next layer of your purse complete. We're ready to switch over to seed beads now. You're going to be using your size 11 seed beads, and you're going to do it exactly like we just did with these 3mm. From where you're exiting on one thread, I'm going to pick up, to get me started, I'm going to pick up 2 size 11 seed beads. On the other thread, I'm going to pick up 1 seed bead and cross my needles opposite ways through the 1 seed bead and pull. The needle that's exiting towards the bottom goes through the next 3mm here along the edge. The one that's exiting the size 11 picks up a size 11. The one exiting the 3mm picks up a size 11, and you're going to cross your needles opposite ways through that 1 bead. The needle that's exiting towards the bottom goes through the next 3mm. The needle that's exiting out of the size 11 picks up 1 size 11. The one exiting out of the 3mm picks up an 11, and cross your needles opposite ways through that 1 bead. You're going to continue doing this all the way around until you reach the other side of the boat or the purse. When you get around to the other side, I've got one more 3mm that I have to go through. So, just like I did on the previous row, I'm going to take the thread that's coming out towards the bottom, and I'm going to go through that last 3mm on the edge. Now this might take some work to get it through there, but you'll get it through there. And then once you get it through there, go up to the first 11 right above where your thread is exiting. I'm going to pick up 111, it doesn't matter on which needle. And I'm going to cross my needles opposite ways, or my threads opposite ways, through that 1 bead. so that when you do that, that finishes up this row. Now we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to start right where we're exiting. On one needle, or on one thread here, I'm going to pick up 2 size 11s. So 1, 2. With the other thread, I'm going to pick up 1 size 11. And I'm going to cross my threads opposite ways through that one bead. Just like I have on all my other rows, I'm going to take the thread that's exiting towards the bottom, and I'm going to go through the next bead in my row, which is going to be a size 11. Now your size 11s that you're going to be going through are those very top size 11s. So I'm going to flip it like this so I can show you. They're going to be these 11s right here that are on top. So I've went through the 11, the one that's exiting out of the 11 at the top is going to pick up an 11. The other needle, the one exiting out of my base, picks up an 11, and I'm going to cross the threads opposite ways through it. And then I'm going to take the one exiting towards the bottom, and I'm going to go through my very next top size 11 here on the base. And I'm going to go around this whole top, adding that next row of 11s. Once you get around to the other side, we're going to connect this row just like we've done every row before it. We're going to go through the last top size 11 seed bead. And to me, this is the hardest one because you have to kind of, sometimes if it goes to the inside, you have to use your needle to get it, or you have to use a pair of pliers to grab a hold of the little tail. Then I'm going to come up through the size 11 right above where my thread is exiting. And then I'll pick up 1 size 11 and cross opposite ways through it. Doesn't matter which one, just pick it up, cross through it. Just like this. So now you actually have the body of it almost finished. All you have to do is add the top. So pick out your longest thread, and what I normally do is I take one thread, I'm going to hold my longest to the side, and I'm going to take my shorter one, and I'm going to run it through all of the size 11s here along the top edge. Just those size 11s, and pull it nice and tight. Once you go all the way around, you can see that it pulls the top together nice and snug. Now I've stitched the thread to where it's coming out right next to my long thread, and I'm going to take and I'm going to put just 1 or 2 little knots in there. I'm going to take the longest thread and I'm going to stitch it to where it's coming out one of the seed beads and one of the corners here along the outer edge. You'll pick up as many seed beads as you want to for the actual handle of the handbag. Normally you want to put anywhere from 12 to 20 beads depending on your length. So I'm just going to start kind of picking up some beads and see what length I want. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So I'll put on my 12 beads. I'll bring it down. I'll test it to see if that's about the right length, and that's okay, but I think I'm going to add 3 more beads to have a total of 15. So I'll have my 15 beads on there. I'm going to come across to the seed bead opposite the one where I started the band, And I'm going to go through it so that now I have my handle. I'm going to go through my beads, if you can get them through, and you want to come to where you're exiting out next to your tail. And you have two options. You can either stitch to come out next to your tail and tie the tail and the working thread together, or you can tie a couple of half-hitch knots with the little thread that you have left there. It's completely up to you. I just find it just as easy just to stitch back over here to your tail, tie those into a couple of good knots, trim them, and then you'll have a beautiful new purse charm. So I hope you guys enjoyed the bonus video for this week. It's just something very simple. I had a couple of people who requested it. I was hoping to get to it back in the summer, but just kind of kept running out of time and things always kept coming up. So I'm glad I got this done for you before Christmas. But I hope you guys enjoy it. We'll see you again next week for another great video. And we only have, I think, 2 more videos before that'll be it. Before the end of the year. And then I won't see you till 2013. So we'll... this month is just going to fly by us, so who knows. But anyways, I hope you guys have a wonderful week, rest of the weekend, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.